Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of CampusCare EdTalks. EdTalks is a platform where educators and leaders come on board and express their viewpoints related to education and society. Our topic for the discussion is how to tackle examination fear. And to express their viewpoints on the same, we have with us Ms. Seema Saini, CEO, NL Dalmia Educational Society. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. It's an immense pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you for having me over. It's a pleasure to be on this platform.
Thank you, ma'am. To start off with the session, ma'am, I would like to, have a first question for you is why do students fear examination? What is the leading cause for examination fear?
So I think somewhere the fear is such a big word, such a big terminology. It blocks learning. So I find this as a dichotomy, as a contrary, conflicting factor rather, with learning aspects that we expect in students. So examinations are done or assessments are done so that we can evaluate learning. We can know how much of learning happens. But with the fear aspect that comes in, the whole purpose is lost. It's very, very unfortunate. But when you come to think of it, why does this originate? Definitely, the basis or the genesis of this fear in examination is somewhere lack of preparation, not having enough belief and faith and confidence in your own self. I mean, I'm talking per se the student. And maybe too much of societal pressure, family pressure, peer pressure, competition that gets generated along the path. All these in some way or the other are responsible in creating that fear factor. So low self-esteem or not being confident enough becomes a fundamental factor why fear would come into play. Why would the child fear examination? Why would he fear that assessment aspect? And somehow the society has created that huge thing around examinations, say board examination for that matter. So the main reason for fear is not being adequately prepared. So what's happening in the classroom processes? And that's why the child doesn't have the confidence. And if he doesn't have the confidence, self-esteem goes down. Self-esteem is low, family pressure, competition, peer pressure, all of that plays into it, and the examination fear is there.
So, ma'am, what do you think? We have been through that stage. We understand, where is it coming from. So I don't understand. So yeah, you completely right to a fact that when we are not prepared or when we know that we have our examinations right in front of us and we don't barely know the thing or the syllabus or the number of chapters that's even coming for an examination that we are supposed to be appearing for. So, ma'am, what do you think? So this fear is always there. So how to minimize it in terms of there are certain. So it depends, student to student as well. So how do you really think that we should go about it in terms of handling it or something like that? So again, coming to another question is what are the ways to tackle examination fear?
So the answer is in what you just said. The cues are right there in whatever you mentioned. When you said lack of preparation, not having so many chapters, so much of curriculum to be completed before in such a short period of time, and leaving everything for the end, and it's the whole process is misunderstood basically. Unfortunately, fundamentally, I would say the system itself is wrong if we are not having assessments as we should have. The purpose of assessment, the purpose of examination is lost somewhere. It is not to check how much a child doesn't know. It is to check what has been learned. It is to evaluate that. So somewhere if our focus is only wrong and if there is this huge amount of curriculum that has to be completed in a short span of time and then so much to be revised and learned, it's bound to create this problem. So we need to nip it in the bud, or maybe when you know the reasons yourself that this is what is causing it, we need to check on these causes. We need to tackle these causes. So first of all, keep the purpose very clear in mind. What is the purpose of examination? What is the purpose of evaluation and assessment? The purpose is to see how much of learning has happened. If you're going to see how much of learning has happened, obviously it has to be concise and it's a continuous process in the classroom while a teacher is teaching. How are you engaging the students? How are you evaluating at that point of time? What is the level of learning? So automatically, if this part is taken care of, Learning is done on the job. While in the process of your classroom transaction itself, the child is well aware of what needs to be done, and just a basic revision would be required. But if that it's everything is left towards, your unit tests are from next week, तो आज syllabus खत्म हो रहा है, फटाफट फटाफट ये lesson खत्म करो, next lesson खत्म करो. You're building up the pressure in the child's mind, and then the child needs to complete all of this and prepare and then come for the exam. So somewhere we have gone drastically wrong. So it is not, people have, I mean, it's archaic now, I would say, because progressive schools look at things differently. So when they make the unit plans, when they make that annual plans of the curriculum, how are they doing it? Is the textbook directing them to do it? That there are 12 chapters, so do 6 in this and 3 in this. And is this the way curriculum planning should be done? So there are a lot of things at the root cause level which need to be tackled to tackle this examination fear. Why did we hear some years back this rampant suicides, after the board exam results, and suicide helplines were required? Why did we need all of that? So somewhere our system has gone wrong, which thankfully people are realizing, which progressive schools are also implementing. And right from the country's level, even at the CBSE level, the CCE that was implemented, and good schools, whether it is ICSE, IGCSE, IB, it's a continuous evaluation process. You're not waiting for a unit exam, a half-yearly exam. So there is something called formative assessments. So you are able to do the course correction alongside. You're able to divert, take remedial action, prepare the student for the next class, rather than creating a scenario where you are almost cornering the child. Perish or perform वाले situation में हम डाल देते हैं बच्चों को. Perform or perish rather.
Absolutely, ma'am. Very well put across, ma'am. And yes, we do, it is the system that is, somewhere lacking, because, the faculty is rushing at the very last moment to, get certain things done. And that's how, it is creating.
Because you're cramming so much of syllabus in that short time.
Yeah, and on the top of it, you've been told don't cramp. Things are not supposed to be cramped. You have to learn. You don't have to ratify. But how will we do that? Because end of the day, you are rushing, we are rushing, and end of the day, we have our exams right there. So, ma'am, to come up with another question on this, do you think examination fear motivates or demotivates students from revising the subjects?
So fear would obviously demotivate. It blocks the mind, it blocks the learning. So fear is not going to help. But yeah, we can tackle this in various ways. I just spoke to you about that. If you really want to motivate students, again, the purpose is very clear in mind: how much of learning is happening. How are you planning your teaching learning process to evaluate alongside your teaching? Have the children actively participate in the learning process through, and your examination or assessments and evaluation need not be as an exam model. It could be quiz, orals, through activities to gauge and understand how much of learning has happened. And you could score the child on that. You could give grades on that. You could give marks on that. Those kind of assessments can definitely happen. That will definitely motivate the child. Otherwise, the kind of examination that you and I are right now talking about, that so much of curriculum, teachers rushing till the last minute, then 10 chapters, 12 chapters to be asked in that one exam of 1.5 hours or 2 hours. I mean, that doesn't make sense. That is only going to demotivate the student. That means how you're performing in those 3 hours or that 1.5, 1 hour, whatever the timing of duration of your exam. That is going to determine what kind of student you are, how much of understanding of the language, the subject you have. Then that's not practical. That is very, very demotivating.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, I just really want to understand certain things. So, ma'am, so examination fear is not just restricted to how much course that you've done. What do you feel? So, students who are introverts, students who have, scared to interact in the class or respond in the class, maybe this is the fear that creeps in at the end of the day, and which leads to, unwanted results. Is there, I mean, is it a possibility? This could be a possibility?
I didn't get it.
Ma'am, so people, so there are students who are, not that confident, not active, and, are scared in order to, interact in front of the class, not that proactive. So, maybe this fear also has maximum to go with those kids.
No, I wouldn't look at it like that. I would just look at it that if the child is introvert and shy and doesn't really open up and he has a gap in learning, he doesn't muster the courage to talk to the teacher or get a clearer understanding on the topic. Otherwise a child would just approach the teacher, ma'am, I didn't understand this, if you could help me out with it. So maybe the child doesn't muster the courage to do that. That may be one factor which would be a discouraging factor, maybe which doesn't allow the child to really take it up so much. But if a teacher is vigilant, she will look out for such children who need the remedial action on her own, proactively. You don't have to wait for exam results to decide, okay, this child needs remedial action. The child has been with you all along, maybe the year before, how the subject is not out of the blue, not come into play. So the previous year, say it's history or it is maths or it is science, how has the child performed in that class? The fundamental prerequisite knowledge is not sufficient. I need to give a baseline knowledge. If the teacher is proactive and vigilant of what needs to be done, this can be taken care of. There should be no problem. Remedial action can be proactively done rather than waiting for exam result. So if a child is introvert or scared of approaching the teacher or hesitant in some way, the child has to be, you have to create an inclusive learning environment. So again, it's the teacher's role becomes vital in that.
Absolutely, ma'am. Yeah, absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, what makes exams so scary then? Well, I mean, how can teacher play a really important role in the students to handle this kind of fear?
Like I said, playway, activity based, playway, engaging the child, talking to the child, doing some discussions, having some debates, doing some quiz. And if it's something like maths or natural physical sciences, then the lab is there. Mathematical projects can be taken up. And then assessments can happen continuously. And it's a fun way of learning them. Whichever level, I'm not talking of the juniors alone. I'm talking right till grade 12th. How does the student get engaged in and relevant learning happens? Bring things in from the child's environment and then assess the child. That's when you know the application is happening of all the learning. There's no point in reading thick books or big textbooks and huge reference books without understanding how it's going to be applied in real world and in real life, whichever subject we are talking about. So the teacher's creativity and today's Guru Purnima also. Guru has to really elevate from a shikshak to a guru. You have to become and mentor the child in a way by recognizing not just the potential of the child, but how that child will imbibe, how that student will imbibe the learning for a better quality of life that the child will have as he grows. That's what's the role of a teacher. So once that is done in a playway method, in an activity based, engaging the learner with the teacher or with the guru, with the facilitator, that's when, the exams are not scary then. All assessments happen. Before you know it, you're sure whether the child is ready for the next level or not. And you may feel I'm talking idealistic things. There is idealism in this. No, not at all. Because we do it also. Of course, we do have the formal setup of exams. There would be continuous assessments and evaluations happening. But at the same time, there is that fun part of learning also, where you're able to actually gauge and assess the learnings in a child. So then examination is not scary. The child is automatically engaged with what is to be learned, so he's well prepared. He knows what he's talking about. So if he knows, the self-esteem automatically goes up. And then why would exams be scary? It would not be scary. That's a way to tackle it. I mean, and also, I think you also need to look at, giving self-belief is very important. These are values which, as a school, as teachers, we need to ingrain in our children. How would this get inculcated in? So we also need to show the confidence in children that they can do it. And their self-belief has to go up. If their belief goes up, they trust themselves, then I'm sure this is not a problem. It's no longer scary then. And when you're giving enough practice, say, let's talk of very traditional, typical systems. So we have the board exams. So don't just throw the child in the sea. Give him a lot of mocks, prepare him with enough tests and assessments for every chapter that he does, which is done on a routine basis. So it's not scary. Give him multiple pre-boards. Again, that pre-board is not to scare the child. It is just to gain confidence that, yes, I know this. And the next exam, I'll be better than what I have done in this when you hear of students cracking IIT exams or these kind of exams, it's because of a lot of drilling and grilling that happens. So that lot of mocks that they do. When they do so much of mocks in senior classes, they gain the confidence. So whether you gain confidence by engaging the learner in the learning process and the self-esteem goes up and the fear of exam goes out, or you give him a lot of mocks and drills that the child has to go through. Practice makes a man perfect. Exams will definitely be good.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, to sum it up all, I would like to know: do you think students who suffer from examination fear are affected than those who are not?
Are affected with what?
So,
That's my question.
yeah, so there are students, so there is a group who's getting affected because of the examination fear, and there's a group who's you know proactive in terms of understanding and is confident enough to have that examination. But since
Okay.
we realize that there are a lot of suicides or a lot of negativity that happens and creeps into uh examination kind of a scenario, so do you think it gets affected on those students as well?
So how is the student impacted? That's what you want to ask. That some
Absolutely,
students
ma'am.
are confident, so they are able to do well. Some are not prepared well and not confident or introvert and shy. And how are they affected? That's what you mean.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Now, if from right from the first question, this is what I have been talking. If the child does not believe in himself, if self-esteem is low, is unprepared or underprepared for the exam, is not regular and punctual with his studies and what needs to be done, that confidence factor is so low that the child is going to be affected by exams or something approaching. I mean, forget exam, you have to go for a meeting now and you don't know what the agenda of the meeting is. You're not prepared for the meeting. What are you going to do instead? So
Absolutely.
it's as simple as that. The same thing applies in life, even on the child. So he is bound to get affected if preparation is not enough. And it cannot be just the student who has to be blamed for it. I hope you're listening and understanding what I'm saying.
Absolutely, ma'am.
I mean, when we participate in the process, we are involved with it. When we are involved, we know exactly what's happening. So, how is a child going to be affected vis-a-vis a prepared child? It's written on the wall. I have disengaged myself from the learning process. Of course, I'm going to be affected if exams are there. And then you can't have an easy way out saying that we won't conduct exams. You cannot say that. If you have to, ultimately there are levels and you're talking of are we prepared now, you know this much, are you ready to go to the next level? So for that you have to know that much, if not that much, at least some part of it.
Right. Absolutely, ma'am. So yeah, so we can understand so how you are, moving forward, how the examinations or the formative way of understanding the examinations is going forward is the only way, we can fight this battle of examination fear among students. And it's
Yeah.
absolutely the teacher does play an important and a vital role when it comes to how confident a child is when it's going to happen. And whenever you have examinations, so examinations are going to happen no matter what the scenario is. That is the system which is hard to change, and there's no need to change as well, because end of the day you have to understand how good or how well are you preparing, even for yourself and for the entire report card system as well. So
One second, if you don't mind, I'd like to interrupt away whatever you said. Examinations will happen, assessments will happen, but the way it happens can change.
absolutely,
I'll
ma'am.
give you one simple example. You're making a soup. While preparing the soup, you taste and see whether the salt is right or wrong. The flavors, you're checking on the flavor before you're serving the guest. So when you check in between, you're able to assess that, okay, you need to make it a little more sour, or maybe you need to put in some salt, or add some seasoning to it or something. And then you serve and people appreciate, oh, lovely soup and very tasty. So what the guests have done is the summative assessment of your soup preparation, that, oh, your soup was lovely. But what you were doing in the process of making the soup by adding that salt or that seasoning was formative. So, how are you conducting the exams? Exams may be there to stay is a very general and a blanket statement to pass. Exam need not be in the format the way it is conducted. Assessments is going to be there continuously. Assessments will definitely be there to know whether learning is happening, but it need not be there to stay in the sense that, this is it and this is how it will be. The processes are changing. Open book exams have come in. Creative questions have come in, completely application based questions have come in. It's no longer do any 6 questions from the given list. So things change.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. The things are changing, and we're looking forward to more new changes, which is much more accommodating for both of us, and the student as well as the teachers. Ma'am, with this note, we would like to thank you for coming here, Seema ma'am, and giving us such insightful session and telling us how and whichever way we're thinking and taking this process forward.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. Thank you.
The pleasure was all ours, ma'am. So, with this note, I would like to end this session, promising to come up with yet another session which is much more insightful and informative, just like we had today. So, do subscribe our channel, hit the bell icon for more notifications. I'll see you in another episode. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here and share my thoughts.
Same here, ma'am.